Hello again, everybody. You're listening to the Total Basis Podcast, and with me, as always, is Sean Flannery. Sean, how you doing?
We're good. We're good. Still dealing with a little bit of the cough. Voice was absolutely gone, shot last week. But here we go. So let's keep it going.
Yeah, that's right. There was no show last week. I completely forgot all about that. But you know what? It's the Super Bowl. You know,
We
usually do something on the Super Bowl, but I figured, you know what? Screw it. It's the Super Bowl. So let's just skip this week. Now we're all rested, and we had some time to think about what we're going to talk about this week.
Yeah.
And something that we don't normally do too much is just come with curveballs on this show, so to speak. We're going to surprise the hell out of each other with our questionings. We have set up 3 questions for each other to ask.
And this is going to be Rich Hill versus Charlie Morton type curveballs. So,
and
it can be about anything. It can be about anything, really.
Yeah, it's a ask me anything.
We want to keep it about baseball, but it could be about anything. So
yeah, ask me anything edition of this show. Yeah. So without further ado, so I was thinking all week how I'm going to ask you these questions. So I had listened question 1, question 2, question 3, and I figure, you know what? Now, right today, I think the way it works out for me, we're going to start with question 3. Sean, you ready?
Oh goodness.
So, I've been doing this show with you for about 4 or 5 seasons, maybe. I know officially it's 4 seasons in the books, but you count the 2019 year where we were doing it on SoundCloud. That should count as something.
Don't know what, but something.
I never know what you're up to around this time of year. I know what I'm doing this time of year, and I'm like, canceling parties and killing time that I should be spending with my wife and kid, and because I need to get on this baseball stuff. And I thank Austin for helping me out as always. He helped me out last year, and he's helping me out this year. We're getting our projections, getting ready to go. We got the vital information, so now we got the projections to match the players. So it's things are happening. Wheels are in motion.
It's happening.
But again, I don't know what do you do? Like that's mid-February. What is Sean Flannery doing to get himself ready for the fantasy baseball and even real baseball season that's coming up?
This year specifically, I'm drafting. We've already started having some of our first-year player drafts in the dynasty and keeper leagues that I am in. I believe I'm at 5 that are in progress as of right now. Have a couple more coming up at the end of the month or beginning of March. But also around this time, I'm starting to kind of go back, especially with a focus on first-year players. Because, when the draft comes around, like I feel like you get so much information overload on like these 300, 400, 500 players that are drafted. And you try and keep up, but it's by the time you need to recall that information 6 months later, it's kind of hard to do. So I go back, I'm reading my Baseball America stuff, reading the stuff from Jim Callis and not OJ Mayo, but the other Mayo guy from MLB that does their draft stuff. I can't remember his name. But I'm trying to get back and get level on my first year player draft, reading some of the updates on spring training as pitchers and catchers start to report. Of course, this year is going to be a little wonky with the WBC and how many people will be there and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But also at the same time, starting to look, like you said, at some of the projections, kind of getting those tiers and guys in order. I'm never always the best at putting it down and like keeping it somewhere, but I kind of have that list in my head at all times. And depending on when I read something or I see something, it could alter the list a little bit in my head. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm starting to get more into that, gear of, okay, we're about to start up again. So I got 5 first-year player drafts going right now. So no major like redrafts have started, but those aren't that far away either. So I got to get ready for that.
I haven't done a mock draft since January because I've been so busy compiling this big, enormous spreadsheet with Austin. But we've been going at it since January. Hell, Austin got this rolling in December. No. And I thought it was a little too soon, but Austin's like, no, we want to make sure we get this done on time because I want to get this ready. I don't want to be rushing at the end. And of course, as in true Felipe fashion, we're rushing once again at the end, but we're still on pace to get this done in a timely manner. So that's a good thing.
And I want to say compared to last season, so 2021 going into 2022, I feel like I was in a lot of mock drafts. Whether I've been busy at work and I've missed on Twitter where, people are like, hey, we're doing a mock if you want to join,
right?
Send a message. I just haven't. I think I did one, but last year I did like 5, from dynasty startup to redraft. And this year I'm a little bit more not up to date on my mocks, so that'll be interesting. I might hop into one here early this week, like just a random public one to see what happens.
And that's something I've been trying to get done here, because I did a mock draft live on Baseball Life of the Facebook group that we both admin.
Yeah.
And it went pretty well, and I've been trying to emulate that with you for a while now. And it just, for whatever reason, it doesn't work out in our schedule. This could have been the week to do it, but we didn't do a show last week, so now we're behind. But that is one thing I want us to do, is do a live mock draft. It's pretty chaotic.
Yeah.
But once the ball gets rolling, it's pretty easy to do. So, but yeah, I'm so hung up on these spreadsheets that I haven't really done any mock drafting. And then another thing that comes up is we have a teammate, not a teammate, sorry, a league mate. Yeah, I think you met him before. His name is Primo. I've been playing against this guy for over 20 years now. And he goes, it's to the point where in this league, because Melvin, Melvin from Baseball Cosmos, he's joining that points league I keep telling, the Mardi Gras league.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, you know what? Drafts are overrated. I don't even have any early round picks because I'm trying to win championships every year, so I don't care. So, and somehow, I come in. He basically admitted that he comes in willy nilly without much research, which I think is bull. I think he's lying to us, but he says that he does very little draft preparation. So, especially compared to what I'm doing on my end, it's very little, and that he just shows up, looks at the players that are available, and then he just adjusts all season long, and somehow he's always at the end, one of the championship contenders. And
I almost feel like I'm a little in that space. Like
mm-hmm.
I told you last year when I showed up to do the Wharf League, which we finally figured out a date, and I'm moving on the 17th, and we're drafting in Atlanta on the 18th. So that should be an exciting 72 hours for me. But that was chaotic to try and get a date down just for that. Yeah. But I remember when I showed up at the restaurant, we had a little upstairs area all to ourselves. And out of the 15, I think there were 13 of us, 13 of us there, a couple people doing it online. And nearly everyone has a laptop. And I'm just like, okay, I am on the opposite side of that spectrum right now. But once again, I also feel like I'm pretty good about keeping stuff internalized, just in terms of, my listing, my opinions on players. Like I feel like I don't need to look at not a spreadsheet, but like a ranking list that I've made to be like, oh, okay, that's where I had that guy. This is how I feel about him. Because once I see his name, I automatically come up with kind of my thoughts on him and where I think he is relative to other people.
I could never.
And generally, and generally that works out. And that's just kind of the way my brain works in terms of like knowing players, and like when I see their name, okay, I generally know average on base, slug, kind of where they are in home runs, RBIs, who's around them in their own lineups. And that's just kind of my mental, I guess, capacity. I don't know. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, depending on my competition. Because some of those guys that were in Wharf do some real detailed level projection type stuff. And I was not very good in that league. Granted, that was also my top 2 draft picks were, I think, Jacob deGrom and Bryce Harper. So
that'll do it.
Yeah.
So, that's what I mean, though. You can't, and that's the thing that Primo points at. Like, say, you could do all these preparations, but at the end, it just boils down to adjustments and luck. Yeah. Which, if it just boils down to adjustments and luck, then what are we doing? It's just a waste of time that we're doing here. But I don't know, man. I feel I got to be prepared for every scenario. I got to make sure that my list is ready to go, that I'm like Andy Reid out there with my little placard and my
Whopper, double Whopper,
or with
We are
with
not
the
sponsored, by the way.
I got to give you ready with the notes, and I want to call play call number 122. I want player number 122. By the way, while we were talking, I was doing a quick math on how many players are on a spreadsheet as of right now, including prospects that are on a separate spreadsheet. We're talking 830 players.
Wow.
And we're still gonna what do you call it? Cut it down, because we don't need 830 players, but the exercise is that we are basically putting every single player that's on roster resource on a Major League Baseball roster.
Yeah.
And according to ATC projections, because that's the projections that we use around here, if I'm gonna have the heavy-handed job of seeing if some of these players are worth keeping on this list or not. Because like I said, you don't need 830. I think last year we were at 700 though. So
unless you're insane and you're in a 30-team league,
and I'm not.
league.
You are.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Oh yeah, I started. Speaking of the first year player draft, I'm taking over another 30 team league, and I already had to make some moves. I acquired Pete Alonso. I acquired Pete Bellinger. I almost just said Pete Bellinger. I acquired Pete Alonso and Cody Bellinger with a roster that also had Aaron Judge. So I could have traded Judge and just did like a complete teardown, but I didn't feel like my initial prospects were that good. Like I had Mayo from Baltimore. I had Curtis Mead, and that was really the length. Those were my two top 100 guys. And I was like, okay, if I trade Judge, I might end up with like a total of 5 top 100 guys total for the entire roster. And I was like, at that point, let me just try and, I don't want to say win now, but at least compete. And so now I have a lineup that features in a 30-team league, Aaron Judge, Cody Bellinger, Pete Alonso. Like there's a universe where, Cody Bellinger kind of comes back a little bit. And if you pair him with those two guys, like you're off to a great head start. The only issue is I have no shortstop. But did the first year player draft for that, had no first round pick. I had moved that, and I believe the Pete Alonso deal, but I had picks 41, 42, and 45. So out of my 4 draft picks, 3 of them came within 4 picks. And who did I get? I ended up drafting 2 Houston players. Because if there's one thing I've learned, especially I finished reading Evan Drellick's Winning Fixes Everything, I'm just never going to doubt Houston's player development.
Right.
When in doubt, like if it's between 2 guys, just draft the Houston player. But I believe I got Ben Joyce, the hard-throwing reliever for the Angels. And then there's a guy that the Astros drafted in the 3rd round who is supposed to be like Christian Javier 2.0. Like the fastball isn't that high in velocity. It's like high 80s, low 90s, but it's got like, he's got the low release and the insane vertical break, and it just kind of plays and they can't hit it. But yeah, Guilfoyle. Oh God, I'm butchering the name. Tyler Guilfoyle. Like I guess that's how you say it. As well as their outfielder Jacob Melton. So yeah, nice little start to that 30-team league. I just hope I have a shortstop, because right now I don't have one.
Really quick before we move on to the next topic, I forgot that the other reason why I have so many players ranked on my cheat sheet is because these spreadsheets that I do, Sean, they're dualistic. There's 2 reasons for it: fantasy, and of course real baseball, right? Because and that's going to be a theme that we're going to talk about today when I get to my other questions, that meshing of both real and fake baseball.
Yeah.
That we do on this show every Sunday morning. So that's what we do. We try to mesh both worlds together and see what happens. But anyway, and I see Tyler Guilfoyle.
Yeah.
He is currently listed in high A, 23-year-old relief pitcher is what he's listed as for the on roster resource.
Just well, they do creepy things.
Who, roster resource?
Well, no, I mean he had 12 innings, 4 games. One of them was a start, so he was averaging 3 innings basically per appearance. And they were like that was another thing in Drellick's book, which, by the way, I listened to it within a day. It was like a 13-hour audiobook. But they were apparently the leaders in the whole tandem piggybacking using starters like that in the minor leagues.
Mhm.
And I didn't know that. I thought that was like a Rays thing, but apparently it was really the Astros that started the um using two starters in the same game, and apparently that really fucked up Mark Appel, and he hated it. And I don't know, very interesting little tidbit though.
Yeah, well, remember reading the article from the Atlantic, of all things, the Atlantic, suggesting, hey, if you're going to be paying these starting pitchers a lot of money, maybe it might be a good idea to only have them pitch 3 or 4 innings, and everybody like, man, what the Atlantic does. This is why they just stick to politics. They don't know anything about baseball. And then what, 6, 7, 8 years later after that article is written, a lot of these teams are, I mean, we just, our guy Matt from Duluth, Minnesota, I just saw him complain about how the Twins do not allow any other starting pitchers to go past 5 innings and see that the other teams line up like 3 or 4 times a game. And it's like, yeah, every team is now doing something to not expose their starting pitchers nowadays. That's again, different conversation for another time. So
Yep.
that was my random question 1 to you. What's your random question to me?
Okay, so you started off on your third question. I'm gonna start off on my second question. I know this kind of bounces around in your head, but if you had to pick a team to root for that wasn't the Cubs and wasn't the White Sox to be like your everyday team, who would it be?
Oh man, because you could tell who I get excited for. I like teams that look like they know what they're doing. You
But
know
you
how
can only pick one. You can
I
only
know,
pick
I
one.
know. I'm getting to it. I know that we always talk about how I worship the ground that Andrew Friedman walks on. Most people go, oh yeah, Clayton Kershaw is my favorite player. Mike Trout's my favorite player. No, my favorite player is Andrew Friedman. I want to be like him. Sometimes I dream that he is me. And no, I've always liked Andrew Friedman. But do I really want to root for the Dodgers? No, that's too easy, right? That's just
Yeah,
too
well, it's
easy.
too easy. That's a gimme. That's a gimme. Don't be a gimme.
And then there's always the Tampa Bay Rays, but that's like a hipster's choice, right? That's like,
That's like the masochist choice. It's like the really good, like they know exactly what they're doing, but in the end, it's just gonna
and
not.
that's what
Yeah,
I mean. There's a reason why our good friend Angel roots for them, right?
yeah.
Bad luck Angel, bad luck Rays. And now, is the question just is it a permanent fixture? Or is it just for this upcoming season?
Oh no, like permanently,
Oh,
like in
permanently.
your past and in your future.
I guess it has to be the Houston Astros. Like growing up as a Cub fan, when they were in the National League, they used to whoop our asses all the time. And it got to a point where, like, it's a respect thing. It's Craig Biggio, Jeff Bagwell, Derek Bell, the Killer Bees, Sean Berry, Brad Osmus, or as we like to call him, Asmus over here, which front office guy, right? Brad Osmus, who would have thought?
Yeah, who ended up who it was they ended up having Derek Lee, and wasn't there like an outfielder named Carlos Lee?
No, that's where he was with the White Sox, although he might have ended up going to the Astros. I don't
I thought
remember.
Carlos Lee ended up playing for the Astros. I just can't remember because he was like a bigger guy.
Yeah, Hawk Harrelson used to call him El Caballo,
Yeah, he played.
the
So
horse.
first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years were in the White Sox,
Mm.
and then his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then he played for two teams in 2012. So 5 of his last 6 years were with Houston.
Yeah,
You
I
see,
remember
I
now.
remember
Yeah.
like the kind of like mid late 2000s Astros that had Carlos Lee, and I think it was Derek Lee, like the first baseman. Thought he was there for
No,
a little, or he
Derek
was
Lee
Cubs. He
was.
was Cubs, wasn't he?
Oh, I'm sorry. Derek Bell, Derek Lee. Derek Lee's with the Cubs, and before that, he was with the Marlins. Remember that 2003 Marlins that went to the World Series?
Yeah.
Derek Lee was on that team, and then he signed a contract the following year with the Cubs, I believe, in
So
2004.
it is funny that you said you would pick the Astros because I've already mentioned Drellick's book twice now, but you also answered Andrew Friedman. When Jim Crane bought the Astros in 2011, the first person that he wanted to hire that he went to was Andrew Friedman.
It makes sense. I mean, smart
And
people want to follow other smart people, man. It's just the way it is. A smart baseball, smart organization. Say what I think people get it mixed up with me. I do not condone. I do not. What's that word I'm looking for? I do not support them using what they did to win the 2017 World Series. It's more of for me, it's more of an issue that I have with Major League Baseball, that they have these rules in place, but no way to enforce them,
yeah.
which typical Major League Baseball, anytime there's a cheating scandal, we all go up in arms about the teams and the players that get accused of these things. But meanwhile, Major League Baseball just washes their hands like with their pants on, and this is constant with them.
No.
Over the years of the 100 plus years of Major League Baseball, they are constantly getting caught with their pants on their ankles, not knowing what the hell happened with all these rules that they have in the rule book, but no way to enforce them. How the hell are you gonna have like all these cameras and all this technology around because of replay and all this and all that, and not have some sort of independent committee to make sure that people aren't trying? We're gonna trust baseball players, the most what's the word I used before? The most crooked pro athlete that's ever been known to man in this country. You talk about football players, basketball players, hockey players, now baseball players. Baseball players are the most deceivious, mischievous, dishonest group of pro athletes you're ever going to see. And we're just going to trust all these suckers with all this technology around, and you don't think they're going to use that to their advantage? That's the game for the 100 plus years. That's always trying to find an advantage, no matter how along the line they're walking from cheating and not cheating, from sportsmanship to unsportsmanship. Baseball players don't care about that. For all the things about unwritten rules and all that crap, end of the day, it's all about winning. And you know why it's all about winning? Because we saw the two suckers who were involved heavily in those cheating scandals, Alex Cora and what's the other guy's name? The manager, who was it?
Hinch.
AJ Hinch. They got jobs almost immediately.
Yep.
Why? Because everybody wants to win no matter what. That's the name of the game. So aside from that, though, I mean, when people said that the Astros were done, that they were finished, that Major League Baseball really laid down the law. Some people say they got a slap on the wrist, but regardless, they got draft picks removed and money removed, and I think even international pool money removed. We talked about it on this podcast, Sean. All they did was reload and restock. Carlos Correa's gone. All right, well, we just got this kid named Jeremy Pena that no one knows about. We're just going to bring him up, and he's going to be a good replacement. Who else was gone? There was a center fielder that also left.
Springer.
Springer.
Yeah, Springer.
Okay, Chas McCormick.
Correa. Yeah, Springer,
Chas
Correa.
McCormick.
Lots of people.
And then Chas McCormick's the guy who got the game-winning catch in Game 5 of last year's World Series, right?
Yeah.
Against the wall. Okay. Oh, by the way, really quick, you mentioned Carlos Lee. It reminds me that there was a White Sox team with Carlos Lee and Magglio were doing it in the same team. Very exciting team, but leave it to the White Sox to try to build a team around corner outfielders as opposed to a center fielder. But I digress.
Man,
so anyway,
Magglio was a great hitter. Oh God, he was so good.
The fun teams, man, and you could see why the Tigers went to a World Series with him.
He had a career 871 OPS. Magglio.
Very underrated.
502 career slug. That's wild to play till you're 37 and keep that slug over 500. Granted, I mean, I know the era, but
and to put a ribbon on this really quick, Sean, who other teams I was considering? The Seattle Mariners, but come on, do I trust what's the guy, the Dipoto? All my favorite players are going to be gone within
they're gone.
The Brewers, we saw how cheap. I thought Jerry Reinsdorf was cheap. The Brewers, oh my God, the Brewers, they're never going to win. They're never going to amount to anything. So
it's like
what they did to Corbin Burns this week. That's
that was rough.
$750,000, Sean.
Yeah. They talked about the whole arbitration process and winning fixes everything, and how when Stearns was there, they did go to what MLB recommended to teams in terms of like if you're trying to save money. Apparently, MLB actually recommended this to teams, was just go to trial and file, where you submit your numbers, they submit their number. If they don't agree to your number, you're going to arbitration and just go there. Because that will, if the player knows you're not willing to negotiate and they don't want to go to arbitration, which teams know the players don't want to go because they know what's going to happen. They're more likely to accept your figure. David Stearns was the one that was in Houston when they went to that. But when they would go to arbitration, David Stearns was considered kind of, he was assistant GM for the Astros at the time under Luno. But he was the more personable, didn't really like throw it in your face like you suck. But I want to say they said it was after Stearns left, or it might have even been when Stearns was there. They did do it to one player, Jason Castro, when Jason Castro went to arbitration. And Drellick writes in the book that he said, we just killed him. We said, he wasn't worth the money he was asking for, and that really he was one of the worst offensive players in baseball. And I'm like, Oh my God.
Not lying technically.
And then yeah, I mean, at that point, especially,
Yeah.
but it was one of those like, um, and then when Stearns left for Milwaukee, and then Brandon Tauman, who had his own issues after the whole Ozuna thing with the reporter, he became like, I was kind of shocked at how large of a role he had in the Houston front office. They dive into it in the book, where after they won their World Series in 17, like Luna was president of baseball operations and Tauman was GM in anything but name. But apparently, when he took over the arbitration process, he was a big component of it. And they said he would just, I mean, murder people with it. And I can't remember what player who it was. It might have been Colin McHugh, but right at the very end for the last rebuttal, basically the last word the team was going to get, and the players reps weren't going to be able to say anything. They brought up his injury, some sort of medical record, and it had nothing to do with what the players reps had just said, but they just kind of ambushed him with it at the very end. And usually they said customary they shake hands after the hearing. And apparently one of the player reps came up to Brandon Tauman and said, "You're a fucking asshole." And that was just like the culture at Houston. And I'm just like, I can see why this happened now.
And this is after David Stearns left, what you say?
I believe so. Stearns might have still been there, but I think Tauman was the one like actually in the room during the ARBs.
Because I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's just so funny that you mentioned David Stearns being the guy with the tact and all that. David Stearns is no longer the Brewers front office guy anymore. He left this past offseason.
He's locked. Like, okay,
I thought he
there.
left.
He has 1 year left on his contract, and they didn't want him to leave. So he's there, but not there. If that makes any sense.
So, because my angle here was, I was going to say, it's funny that David Stearns steps down from being the full-time GM, and then this is how the Brewers treat Corbin Burns. I'm wondering if this would have happened if David Stearns was really in charge still. I mean, what do you think of that? Does this happen? What happened to Corbin Burns this past week in arbitration? Does this happen if David Stearns is still really in charge of the team?
Probably not, but it could have been. I mean,
okay.
I mean, because he is not. Yeah, he did step down, and Matt Arnold's taken over, but he's still there because he has 1 year left on his contract, and I think it's a little bit out of spite because there's been so many rumors going back to when Cohen originally bought the team that they were going to bring in Stearns for president of baseball operations. Honestly, I think once that contract's up, he might become team president. They might just hand him with Sandy Alderson on the way out. They might just put him in charge of everything. He has the MLB. He worked in MLB's office. He has that background. He has the baseball background. So yeah, I could definitely see the Mets taking a run at him. And I also see why the Milwaukee owner wouldn't want to just give him away, like give permission to have him seek a job elsewhere, even though it would be a promotion. I mean, he'd be going from just over baseball ops to over an entire organization.
And to put another ribbon on this one, I'm looking at the other teams that I might have considered. The Guardians, that's another team we kind of positively talk about.
I would have bet you would have picked Cleveland, so I'm a little shocked.
It's just they're too cheap, man. I mean, it's the Brewers. I mean, it's the same reason I'm not going to root for the Brewers. Is they're too cheap. Don't give me that you don't have any money. Get out of here. Maybe the Twins. I've always liked the Twins from afar, but not that much. The Yankees, I might as well root for the Dodgers if that's the case. The Rangers, that's always, and the Blue Jays, those are two interesting teams, but I feel like they don't know what the hell they're doing half the time. The Nationals, I've always respected Mike Rizzo and the teams that he put together, although I cannot co-sign what he's doing right now with that team.
R.I.P. Ted Lerner.
Right. The Cardinals, gross. The Cardinals, disgusting.
That's where that little Cubs fan lives.
They're just annoying as hell. They are one of the most annoying people I've ever met. They're nice. They are super nice. I've been to Busch Stadium. They are some of the nicest people you're ever going to encounter, but they're just so overbearing. I can't do it. Giants are interesting.
They're the Braves. I mean, they're just the Braves of the Central.
Braves of the Central.
That's all they are. It's
no way.
They've won for too goddamn long, and they just have this air about them that all they do is win. And somebody just needs to kick them in the teeth.
Yeah, right. Padres are interesting. Giants are interesting. The Mets, I can't do the Mets. I'm sorry, dude.
I wouldn't want you to. Don't put yourself through that.
no New York teams for me. So, and that's it. I'm sorry. Do the Braves fans call themselves the best fans in baseball? I rest my case. Moving on. Question number 2 for you, Sean. All right, so we talked about dynasty leagues. You're in another 30-team league, but let's say you're starting from scratch. All right, and this is like a 3-tier question, really quick.
Okay.
If you are starting a new keeper league, right? You know what a keeper league is, right?
Yes.
And let's just say 12-team, right? Let's not get
Okay.
too complicated here. 12-team keeper league. Let's say you get to keep 3 players, and the first year of keeper leagues, they start right now. Who are you drafting with your first pick, with your first round pick?
Oh Jesus.
I should say number 1 pick overall. Who is
Okay,
it?
so number 1 overall, and I know I get to keep him for at least 3 years.
At least 3 years, yeah.
I would probably go. That's tough. Julio, I feel like Julio Rodriguez is a really popular answer, but you
Yep.
know how skeptical I am of the uber talented but kind of wishy-washy hit tool. I see the 26-27% strikeout rate, and you get a little worried. You worry if the power drops at all, like what you're left holding the bag. I almost, how old is this guy?
Rodriguez 22.
No, I'm going Kyle Tucker.
Oh jeez.
Kyle Tucker. I think he has like the best of every little bit of tool. He has the 30 home run power. He has the 20 plus stolen base pop. He has the ability to hit for a pretty high average, especially now that the shift's gone. I think he's in the middle of a very good lineup. Going to be batting in front of guys like Yordan Alvarez, hopefully. God, I swear to, if Dusty Baker hits Jeremy Pena second and not Kyle Tucker, or hits Jeremy Pena anywhere in the top 3 and Kyle Tucker's not in the top 3, I am going to lose my damn mind.
Come on, dude, man. You got to give Jeremy some at bats at the top, you know? Come
on,
man.
It worked in the postseason, dude.
It worked in the postseason. You don't mess with success. You know what I mean, dude? Come on, man.
Oh.
That's
that just shows he's an inferior hitter that needs better hitters behind him. Kyle Tucker does not.
we can't just leave Jeremy on an island by himself, man. Come on, dude. All right, well, that's your keeper league. What about a dynasty league where you get to keep these players in perpetuity, and you have that kind of a long-term mindset going in? Who's your dynasty leaguer for this? Exercise.
That kind of puts me in the mind of a Juan Soto or a Wander Franco. I think that's kind of where I end up there. I know Wander Franco has kind of lost a lot of his shine, but I think he's still an insanely talented player. But I'd probably go Juan Soto just because it's so safe. I mean, I feel more comfortable with him.
And the last one, now you are, let's call yourself, you are in charge, Sean. You are in charge of a real Major League Baseball team. You are the David Stearns of this team. And Major League Baseball, let's call it, you're part of an expansion team, right? And Major League Baseball has decided, since you're starting out, and we want to make sure this expansion team has all the, the advantages going into their first season. You get to pick whoever you want in Major League Baseball to start your franchise. So that's the face, the productivity, the tickets, the big money draw. All of that goes into effect, right? When you're owning a real team. Who is that number 1 guy for you that you would build your franchise around? You might have done this with your out of the park, whatever that's called.
Yeah. I think you do. I think it comes down to like a Juan Soto again.
Wow.
I mean, you could. Yeah. That's a tough question because it's just there's so many, especially guys that maybe aren't even in the major leagues yet. But you don't want to pick somebody that's not really proven, but you don't want to pick somebody that's too old or too proven.
That sweet spot, like a barrel.
Yeah, I would definitely pick Juan Soto because now, looking at this list, it's just kind of absurd. Of all the qualified hitters last year in Major League Baseball, the youngest was Julio Rodriguez at 21. Number 2 is Bobby Witt Jr. at 23. You had you had 5 23-year-olds. They were Juan Soto, Andres Jimenez, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Alejandro Kirk, and MJ Melendez. So Juan Soto was the third youngest qualified player in baseball last year, and he's Juan freaking Soto. So yeah, I'm picking Juan Soto again.
For my list, I couldn't help but go with Ronald Acuna Jr. I've always liked the kid. I always liked the guy. I know that he's had the knee injury. He doesn't play center field as much because I think he only qualifies at right field, I believe.
Yeah, he's.
At
I think
least
the center field days are. I mean, it's hard to say done because he's only 24, but I don't know.
I've also considered J-Rod as well, just because I like him. But yeah, you're right. The swinging tendencies do kind of concern me a little bit, but it seems like he was able to control his strikeouts in the minors just fine. But yeah, at one point late last season, he was up to 30%. I think we talked about that on this show as well. Whereas Ronald Acuna has a track record already. He's still only 24 years old. He'll be 20. Actually, he's 25 now. His birthday's in December. So he's 25 coming into the season. But I just can't help but think that he still has 30-30 potential, especially with all these rule changes. I think he's one of the more exciting players in Major League Baseball. I know last year I'm going to call it a wash that it was just because of the injury, but I just can't help but think that this is the guy I want to build my team around in keeper leagues or even in dynasty leagues. Because the other name that showed up on my list was Aaron Judge, but he's old.
Yeah, 31.
And even with the new rules, I don't know if he's going to steal 15 stolen bases again.
No,
I don't think so.
I think that was the contract year stolen base number that we see kind of a lot.
And it could have been just because the Yankees were struggling, as funny as it sounds, struggling to score runs without him in the bat. So if he wanted to score runs himself, he had to take a few more chances than usual, probably. I don't know. A dynasty, I didn't think about it that far ahead in terms of dynasty, but I guess Ronald Acuna or J-Rod would be my guys, and maybe Juan Soto as well. Just I don't know. Just where am I getting my stolen bases is my question. I think the older Juan Soto gets, the less stolen bases he's going to get. And then here's another question for you. First year in a keeper or dynasty league, you tell me what you want. You want a minor leaguer and you want to reach for him. Who's that guy? Minor league prospect.
Oh, geez. I probably will go away from. It won't be a pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to just pull up a quick list here. And they can't have already debuted. Or they just have to have prospect eligibility. Because I mean, like somebody like Gunnar Henderson, you could still like realistically pick. But if I'm gonna have, but that's not really reaching for somebody. If I had to reach for somebody who, even this guy's a top 20 prospect, but still gets lumped behind a lot of bigger names, I think I'm going Endy Rodriguez.
Okay.
With Pittsburgh.
I think that
the switch hitting catcher, second baseman, left fielder. I like the positional versatility. I love the hit tool, the burgeoning power, the good plate discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Endy Rodriguez is the play.
I have him listed here somewhere, but yeah, I guess not to disclose too much of my secrets, but I have both Francisco Alvarez and Anthony Volpe at the very top of my list here. For number one, number two. And again, this is guys who my list is a little bit more complicated. These are guys who have not debuted. At least they shouldn't have debuted already. But number two, they're not expected to make the big league roster. Although I just listened to Rates and Barrels this past week, and there's Eno made a case of, hey, if Anthony Volpe is playing with the starters almost on a semi-regular basis, you can probably pencil him in and as making it to the opening day roster at this point. So I may have to move him on to my real list if that's the case. But I have a backup list, so to speak, in case I want to get a minor league player. So Rodriguez, Rodriguez is top 10. Endy Rodriguez is top 10 on my list. Yeah. But my guy, you're going to think I'm crazy, but if I'm starting in a new keeper league or a new dynasty league, I am very intrigued by Jackson Holiday.
Okay. Yeah. And he's gotten like, when I first you see the headshot of him and you're like, that kid's a baby. Like he's like at least 5 years away. But he got a lot of love in that. I've heard even going forward, it's like the plate discipline's insane, like the swing, just maybe not even plate discipline, but swing decisions are really good. So for how young, I mean, he is 19, he just turned 19.
Yeah. He's a teenager.
It just depends on, I guess, how fast they push him. Mm-hmm. But I've heard just from social media and words from scouts on social media and whatnot that and reports from scouts that they really do think the world of Jackson Holiday and like the makeup and that he can move fast, but it's like hard for me to reconcile that with like when I see him. And it's like he's not that big. He looks like a baby. And I'm just like, okay, but he's a long way away. But the way they make it sound like he could move very, very fast.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, it's the reason why I have on my prospect lists are usually reserved for guys who, for leagues. I'm not in a crazy league like you are, Sean, but these are for leagues like short term. Very short term. Are they going to be coming up soon? Is there a propensity to think that they're going to be moved up like a Luis Robert? How quickly he got moved up the minor leagues? And I don't get that from Jackson Holiday, but just the fact that number one, people love him. Very high profile pick, and there's some name recognition because he's the dad. He's the son of former major leaguer Matt Holliday.
Yep.
So that's a lot of things. As far as pitchers go, I got number one, number two, Daniel Espino and Yuri Perez. I think if I have to get a pitcher in these formats, it'd be those two guys right there.
Yeah.
So any pitcher that you want to include on that you would consider?
I like Espino, but the injury risk and everything is high. Yuri Perez is still really good, but it's hard for a pitching prospect to really win me over just because I've kind of been burned there so much. But I think when it comes to pitching prospects, you might not want to oversell for the number one guy, but rather get like a gaggle of like the 15 to 25 range. And just kind of do the quality over quantity over quality and see if just one of them hits rather than putting all your eggs in one basket.
So basically anybody from the Texas Ranger system got it.
Yeah, basically.
At least that's how I have it on my list. All right. What do you got for me, man?
Okay. So you said you started playing fantasy. I believe it was what you said, 2002?
2001. No, it was 2001 because I remember I was pissed off. I was a teenager. Leave me alone, guys. But I was pissed off that they canceled games for 9/11. That's how bratty of a child I was.
So you've played over 20 years of fantasy baseball.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Who has been the biggest surprise throughout the years? Like I said, I did this very vaguely that it could have been a what or a who.
Yeah. Or members of the Who. Robert Townsend.
But like what was like the number one thing that like surprised you was it like did you not expect Mike Trout to be that good or some sort of scandal? Like what was like the one thing that made you go whoa?
Oh man, this is so open-ended, and you know how I struggle with my open-ended questions. I guess the one that hurt them, because this was personal for me, the one that hurt a lot to me was I was able to in the mid 2010s, around the Mike Trout era, I was able to get a bunch of first round picks, early round picks for some of my established veterans. And I was able to get back George Springer, Will Myers, and Oscar Taveras at one point, all on the same team. Like, all right, well, my team's going to suck, but at least I have these guys.
No.
They're supposed to be the top echelon prospects in the future of Major League Baseball, right? And I guess that's a cautionary tale about what happens. I mean, you saw me in this Baseball Life League, how I made 5 consecutive draft picks on minor league players.
Yeah.
And the only one and these were all really good minor league players. And I guess that was my next question I was going to ask you with that previous question, question 2C, I should say. Question 2, letter C, sub-Roman numeral number I, is the discussions that we always have about these minor league players, right? Can they be trusted? Do we put too much stock in them? And in this instance, yeah, Will Myers did not live up to that lofty number one prospect expectation in all of baseball in the 2010s. At least I don't think he did.
I mean,
no, he disappointed. Come on.
Oh, okay. But I would say that for even like someone that is a number 1 to like number 10 top prospect to end up sticking in the league for 10 years.
But that's not what you draft these guys, though.
Yeah,
for fantasy purposes.
Yeah, it's not what you expect. But I have a hard time.
You draft them.
Okay, we'll call them a fantasy bust then. But even that's then, what I mean. Yeah, he had like a 30-30 like almost like a 30-30 season, a 30-20 season, but it wasn't like what you expected.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about how we won Juan Soto, Ronald Acuna. Will Myers at one point was part of that conversation because of the Baseball America putting him at number 1.
Yeah.
So yeah, real baseball, wonderful player. Fine. He's not gonna make it into the Hall of Fame, but he did what he could, lasted a long time, made a lot of money. Fantasy baseball, it's one of those guys you can't trust ever. And you were, if you were like me, you fell for it. Thank God for those other picks that I was given. Otherwise, this shit would have really been messed up.
It really is so weird in his career that like normally with strikeout rate, there's like a more of a arc to it. Like it starts high and then it goes low and then it comes back up again. But his is just basically gone up. Like it's just gotten higher and higher just about every year. I mean, but he still had like really good years. I didn't realize how good he was in the COVID year. Holy hell. He had a 155 WRC plus. What? 606 slugging, and he had 15 home runs and 55 games.
Gotta love those small sample sizes.
Oh god.
George Springer was the guy I didn't want. I didn't want him, but well, you're gonna give me George Springer, I guess, but I'm ready to trade him away. And he ended up being the best player of the three because the third guy on that trade, Oscar Taveras, he passed away, unfortunately. And just when he was starting to get good, he showed a lot of good plate discipline when he got called up by the Cardinals. And then that following winter, he died. Car accident in the Dominican Republic, and that started like this slew of car accidents. And Jordan Ventura was the other guy as well.
I feel like there was one more that was between them, but I might be thinking of somebody else.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't drink and drive, don't drive at night, and the Dominican Republic roads can't be trusted. That's at least, and that's not just me saying, and it's people who live down there who complain about it. You're losing your favorite baseball players because of it. And then some other things that, because I've only been in this Mardi Gras league for a while. That was only the only league I did, the points league, the head-to-head points league, exclusively almost. Some of the other things that kind of stood out, how dominant Barry Bonds was at that time. You know, I always feel like I can beat anybody, I can compete with anybody. Around this time, I was really struggling because I was, number one, this is why I don't trade for my favorite players on my favorite teams, because that was the biggest mistake I ever did in this league. Was I traded all my best players so I can get guys like Kerry Woods, Sammy Sosa, Paul Konerko. And I that's how cocky I was. Like I could win with my favorite players. It's gonna be a great summer, and then I was miserable. That's why I make fun of these people who are like, oh, I'm gonna draft all my favorite Phillies players, and then I laugh at them when their teams suck. That's what happens. That more often than not, that's what happens. That's why I make fun of. Oh, you're a Mets homer, Sean, because I know you're gonna get burnt by it, but you know. I mean, look at this. We
haven't gotten burned the last 2 years, but I've also made a conscious effort to like move away from that. Like there are still a few like Mets players that I will pick, but it's not because they're Mets. It's because I do think they're very good, and I'm usually the high person on them. So like Brandon Nimmo is in that group. Yeah, like Pete Alonso's not in that group for me, but Brandon Nimmo, because I feel like they're inefficiencies that I can take advantage of that other people, especially in fantasy, because a lot of the times that like the McNeils and Nimmos are like, oh, they're better in real life than they are in fantasy because they don't hit a lot of home runs, they don't steal a lot of bases, and I'm just like, okay, but if I draft them a little bit higher than where they're going, and I take a risk on somebody who could hit a lot of home runs or steal a lot of bases later, then I just raised my floor, and I'm not like so reliant on the risk later in drafts, because I can kind of establish that I'm not going to go into a free fall in this category or that category. So I've been a floor over ceiling person.
Yeah, and that's been on the record on this podcast for the last 4 or 5 years. So
don't draft high school pitchers.
Oh yeah, let's not do that. It says the guy who gushed over Andrew Painter this whole offseason.
Yeah, that is true.
But no, anyway, Barry Bonds dominant. Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez dominant. You know who else kind of surprised me as well? Now that you mention it, a guy like Derek Lowe, who not only was a great starting pitcher, maybe great is a strong word, but he was damn good starting pitcher.
Derek Lowe or Derek Lee?
Derek Lowe, starting pitcher, and he was also a pretty darn good closer. So you were able to get production. He last
pitched in 2013.
You were able to get.
So yeah, I remember I remember the last few LA years, Atlanta, and then Texas.
You were able at his peak with the Red Sox. You were able to get all types of production from that guy. I mean, I've seen teams win with him. So
oh god, that is weird. I never like noticed that in his career that he was a relief pitcher.
I'm telling you, 20 years, man.
15 saves, 42 saves, 24 saves, and then the very next year, 200. He went from back-to-back 91 in 1/3 and 91 and 2/3 innings, and then the very next season 220 innings. Who needs this building up of arm? Like, that's all crap.
The 2000s were weird, man. But you know what else was weird? Brandon Webb, perennial Cy Young
God.
candidate,
Yeah.
and then his arm broke off. It wasn't even Tommy John; it was a shoulder.
Yeah, it was a shoulder.
Really
if you haven't watched it yet, you need to go watch Jolly Olive.
What's that?
He does the Mets John Boy podcast with Jerry Blevins, but he started off as like his own individual YouTuber, and he kind of does like foolish baseball type videos of like these very random people that we may have forgotten about. But he did a Brandon Webb one, and it was really, I mean, he was there for 6 years and then never pitched again. I mean, he never missed a game, and then he missed the rest of his career. But he did a really good video on Brandon Webb that was fun to watch.
So I talked about Derek Lowe. Derek Lowe was mostly on the guys' team, our commissioner's team, who also had Randy Johnson. So you can imagine how many championships they won.
No.
The guy who had Barry Bonds also had Albert Pujols. So you can imagine how many championships they won.
Geez.
So I think that's one of the things that I can remember over the last 20 years is how dominant, crazy dominant guys like Barry Bonds, Albert Pujols were, even Alex Rodriguez, even with his strikeouts. I guess he didn't strike out a lot. I'm thinking about A-Rod was pretty dominant. So yeah, you get to appreciate just how dominant some of these guys could be in a points league setting, because it's there's a tangible number that shows how killer they were.
Yeah.
Pujols was a million times better than a lot of the hitters during his era. You mentioned Mike Trout, because I want to talk about Mike Trout really quick too. Mike Trout, in my blog, I had him as a top 10 prospect. There was a lot of issues with Mike Trout, though. Like, he had a lot to learn, and he got exposed that first time he got called up. And of course, he had the tools and the makings to be one of the greatest, at least one of the best hitters when he got called up. And if he could just figure out major league pitching, he could be a very productive hitter. Did I get feelings of greatest generational player of all time? I don't know. I think at that time, I had, who would have been my number one guy? Shoot.
So it would have been like 2010 to 2011.
2012 even. I was somewhere around there, Baseball America's list. And I could probably look for it. But yeah,
I'm pulling up the 2010 list.
But on that list, Sean, you'll appreciate it. You had the Zach Wheelers and the Noah Syndergaards of the world.
You had Jason Hayward, Steven Strasburg, Giancarlo Stanton, Buster Posey, Desmond Jennings, famous Montgomery biscuit there, Carlos Santana, Alcides Escobar, Dominic Brown, Jesus Montero. I'm just kind of jumping around here. I'm not going in order. Jason Castro, just mentioned you on the pod. Will Myers, 33, D Gordon, 36 at shortstop.
I found it, Sean. 2012. We are 10 years, Sean. Thank you for doing this to me. 10 years in the making. The 2012 Major League Baseball Prospect Review. Here are the top 5. Number 5, Trevor Bauer.
I'm sorry. This is just funny.
Julio Teheran from the Braves, number 4. Why? Because I saw that he was being compared to Pedro Martinez. Well, you got to have the next Pedro, right? You mentioned Jesus Montero. You're right. Number 3. One of the many players that were linked to the biogenesis scandal.
Where was this? Was this posted on XN?
This is on my blog. No. This is before. This is the reason I got hired by XN. They saw how much this is at my old blog, pathologicalhate.blogspot.com. you know what? I can send you the link.
Yeah, that's. I kind of want to read along.
Sorry about that. Let me send that to you right now. So, and this is probably the last time I ever did anything like this. I wasn't employed. I had some time, so
I had time
in between job applications. This is what I was doing. Bryce Harper, number 2.
Okay. So we're going from 5 to 1. Okay, this makes sense.
Yeah. So at that point,
skip ahead to number 1. Hey, you just got a contract like 2 days ago.
At this point, number 2, Bryce Harper, and I think I might have Mike Trout either top 9 or top 11. I forget, and it's because of the strikeouts. I didn't like the strikeouts. Number 1 on the freaking list. I cannot believe I read this.
It's okay. Just let it out.
Matt Moore. The outlook that I was reading, and I had this in quotes, and looking back, I should have cited who. I don't know if this is Baseball America or if this is CBS Sports. One of those two told me that Matt Moore might be better than Steven Strasburg. So
Oh, how
Yeah.
far we've come.
In number 10, Miguel Sano. Number 9,
Oh,
Mike
it
Trout.
is. This almost is to the date. This is a week from. This is what 7
10
days
years
away.
ago. 10
Yeah.
years ago to the date. I told
Oh,
you. Miguel Sano, number 10. Number 9, Mike Trout. Number 8, Danny Holtzen. Remember that?
oh, Danny Holtz. Did he actually end up pitching like during the COVID year or
Probably
something?
I think for the
The
Cubs,
Cubs,
maybe. I
yeah.
don't remember. Number 7, Shelby Miller. Number 6, Nolan Arenado. Should I continue? This is getting painful for me.
Uh,
Number 15, James Paxton. Number 14, Brad Peacock. I will never give up on Brad Peacock,
Brad,
guys.
I remember I picked Brad Peacock in the 30-team league after the first season. Somebody had dropped him, and I was like, I'm not going to give up on him, and he hasn't never pitched again. And I wasted a second-round pick in the first-year player draft on him.
Number 13, Jacob Turner. Control. This is the outlook. 20. This has to be from CBS. He's a control artist. Should make his way to the big leagues in 2012. I don't think he ever did. Oh, maybe he did for like very short stints. Jacob Turner. Number 12, Randall Delgado. Depends if Tim Hudson is
Braves.
Yeah. Well, he listed as the Diamondbacks, but I also see if Tim Hudson's not healthy, Randall Delgado might get the start in the opening day roster.
Yeah, that must have been a trade, I think. Then.
And who the hell is Dwayne Below?
Lefty, right?
And this might be. Oh, I didn't list that, but this might be just because I'm trying to see who has a good chance of making that opening day roster.
Yeah,
but
he pitched for the Mets at one point, Dwayne Below, but he was mainly a Tiger.
Well, Dwayne Below lived up to my expectations.
Okay, so he never pitched for the Mets. Why did he have a picture of? He signed a minor league contract with the Mets in 2015, but he never made the roster.
I was impressed by Below's 1.30 WHIP in AAA.
Jeez.
And his 6.1 strikeout per 9. How have times changed?
Yeah, I was about to say I'm looking at his major league strikeout numbers: 4.34 K per 9, 5.63 K per 9, 6.75 K per 9. It almost just doesn't seem real, like that we're playing the same sport than we were 10 years ago, like in terms of strikeouts.
Just around at the top 20. This is getting bad. Will Middlebrooks, number 20. Number 19, Nate Eovaldi. Number 18, Lonnie Chisenhall.
I remember Lonnie Chisenhall.
Another left-hander coming up, number 17, Yonder Alonso. So this is back when I loved my left-handed hitters, apparently.
And if these were the left-hand hitters you love, I understand why you don't love them anymore.
Number 16, Drew Pomeranz, Colorado Rockies starting pitcher.
Drew. You said Drew or Colin?
No, Drew Pomeranz.
Oh,
Drew
okay.
Pomeranz.
Yeah, okay. That's I was about to say there was a Colin Pomeranz. Yeah, I know Drew Pomeranz.
Zach Wheeler shows up at number 24. This is just
it's good to go back and reminisce.
Anthony Rizzo, number 30. Mike Montgomery, number 29. Who? Rizzo, number 30.
Oh, Rizzo, okay.
Number 29, Mike Montgomery. So I was already foreseeing the 2016 Cubs championship right there.
There you go. They're all bundled together.
Garrett Richards, number 27. And here's a guy I really like. Number 26, Devin Mesoraco, catcher for the Cincinnati Reds.
Yep. Voluntarily retired because he didn't make the major league roster for the Mets.
Anyway, did that satisfy your answer there?
Yeah, that was better than I could have ever asked for.
Oh, this is bad.
This is bad.
Well, there was a method to my madness in asking you these questions. I know we're going a little bit over. Actually, we're about
we're right at about an hour.
An hour, okay.
And I think I have one or
yeah, you have one more as well, I think, unless you throw me another curveball, a slider, so to speak.
Yeah, so that was you don't have one more?
I got one more for you.
Yeah. So you go, and then I have one more.
But I got to preface this by saying, okay, so we've seen guys from baseball perspectives. We've seen guys from Fangraphs make it to Major League Baseball front offices. We've seen the nerds win the battle of nerds versus old school, whatever you want to call them. You know, I cannot name you a former Major League Baseball player who's now a general manager or has a big hand in the day-to-day operations of baseball on these 30 teams of Major League Baseball. Dave Cameron, Padres, and Eno Sayers and the DVR on their Rates and Barrels podcast just talked about how they were able to acquire some, I forgot who it was, but they were able to acquire some guy, the Padres, that because Dave Cameron really pushed hard to get this guy. And I don't know who the name was. I can't remember it. If I look at the roster, it'll probably trigger a memory, but if you know off the top of your head, just let me know. Mm-mm. But Dave Cameron, former Fangraphs writer, now a Padres front office person, got credit big time for some acquisition.
I'm
looking
gonna
at the
do a
roster right now.
random Twitter search.
Yeah.
Dave Cameron Padres.
And it might have been something as simple as Xander Bogaerts, but who knows?
Well, I don't know.
Kevin Goldstein was the first guy I noticed that, former baseball prospectus writer going to the Houston Astros.
They talked about Goldstein a bunch in Drellick's book, a bunch.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm telling you, you need to read it. It was a really, and everyone's like, I guess I've read one review that I was like, it was no new information on the sign stealing scandal, which I really don't think that was what he wrote the book about, and talk about the details or unearth new stuff that we knew how they pulled it off. The book was about how it happened, how it didn't get stopped, and just kind of the culture, I guess, that was created.
That's the one thing about the sketchiness about the Houston Astros is that they do have a bunch of, from what I just from listening, that they do have a bunch of former business executives who did a lot of shady stuff on the business side of things, in the corporate world. So they were able to.
I mean, even Crane's business ventures. He had a lot of issues in the past.
Where does he come from again? Is he from Big Energy as well?
He was a global logistics.
Of course he was.
Yeah. He had a global logistics. He had a lawsuit, hiring discrimination lawsuit that he settled, and then war profiteering charges that a couple of his employees went to prison for. But yeah, he's a major league owner. All of a sudden, I feel less bad about Steve Cohen paying $2 billion in SEC fines.
All right, maybe I don't want to root for the. No, it's okay.
No, but it was the kind of the premise that Drellick says is they brought in all of these insane smart people, which nobody doubts the intelligence of Luno, but it was just this absolute fixation on winning, and just not even winning, but constantly evolving is not the right word. Constantly improving, constantly evolving, like being just the tip of the spear in anything you do, like being the first person that runs through that door. And when you're doing something like that and you kind of take off the guardrails, sometimes it works out great when, they became such big users of like the Edgertronic cams.
Yeah.
But sometimes it also means that if you do something bad, you're not going to necessarily get your hand slapped for it or be told to stop, because at least you were trying to be out front. So it was a pretty interesting dilemma going there.
So that's the thing that about the Astros, right? Oh geez, I lost my train of thought. But anyway,
the people in baseball ops there were there's even a whole chapter called The Island of Misfit Toys, where all of these people that had jobs in the Astros baseball operations department had never worked for another baseball ops team, and they all figured that if it didn't work in Houston, they were never going to get another baseball ops job.
Yeah.
So it was like the very, like hiring Kevin Goldstein, hiring, all of these very analytically forward people. Brandon Tauman came from the finance world and became sort of like this 27 tool-in-one fixer for this department, that department. And it was just a very interesting, not very good culture, but one that definitely prioritized, winning and constant innovation. I guess was the word I was looking for.
So with all that being said, I mean, we've seen business people, we've seen lawyers. I mean, Theo Epstein went to law school, became a front office folk legend. These executives, these analytics guys, these numbers guys, you see a job posting for Major League Baseball teams. Do you know SQL? Do you know Python? I don't even know if I'm using these right. R Square, Python, all Excel, database, Access.
Well, that was how Tauman got hired. It was on Fangraphs that the Astros put out a economist job posting. They were trying to hire an economist.
Yeah,
he applied, and he went from making six figures on Wall Street to like 60 grand with the Astros. But he just had a little every step. He got more and more power, more and more responsibility.
That's why you save your pennies, man. You got to save your pennies.
Very interesting situation that one,
because you never know when that dream job lands, and you're gonna have to take a pay cut to get it. But that's why you save up those pennies, brother. I'll tell you what. Don't get that new car. Don't get that bigger house. Just live a meager lifestyle and you'll always be rich, right? No matter
Save
what
your
job you're doing.
pennies.
I gotta say my penny after the show too. I
Oh,
wonder
yeah.
what she's up to. But anyway, I mean, the other guy, I think about Jason Parks, right? So all these, I think it was Jason Parks, right? He also worked for Baseball Prospectus as a minor league person.
The name sounds familiar.
I always get confused. It's either Jason McLeod or Jason Parks. He ended up with the Cubs, I believe. Can you just look that up really quick?
Yeah, Jason Parks.
So anyway, so all of that. So, and we also got writers who, and so the sabermetrics people won. They won.
Yeah,
They're ruling Major League Baseball.
They won.
So with that being said, I mean, we listened to the Ben Lindbergh's podcast, Effectively Wild, and he's also very analytical, but he throws in some narrative stuff as well. But a lot of it is factual, evidence-based, numeric-based podcast. Rates and Barrels is a fantasy basketball podcast that goes really into. Eno Ceres will just, oh yeah, I talked to that guy yesterday, and I talked to him. Why don't you throw the changeup more? And I'm not saying that I convinced him, but next thing I know, I realized that he's throwing more of the changeup. So
yeah,
so maybe there's something going on there.
Yeah, Jason Parks, writer for Baseball Prospectus. Well, worked for the Cubs for 3 years as a pro amateur scout and then special assistant to the president GM. Mm-hmm. And for the last 5 years is the director of professional scouting for the Diamondbacks.
Hey, we know how we love the Diamondbacks here. It's not a coincidence, guys. No. And you know what? He left, and the Cubs can't do anything with their farm system either. So
it's funny seeing these trees of
maybe us nerds know something. Maybe we know a little something about. So it's funny you mentioned 20 years, Felipe. You've been on this for 20 years now, and it's funny that you mentioned that because there was a point in time where it was a big no-no to mesh those two worlds together, fantasy and real baseball. Right? Rates and Barrels, they talk so in depth about what to look for, swing pads, pitch. What's the word you use a lot?
Pitch
shape and form and all these guys. You were not supposed to do that for fantasy baseball analysis, and vice versa. You don't use fantasy baseball analysis to evaluate real baseball, Major League Baseball players, teams, what have you, managers, general managers, what have you. It's two different realms, but that's the thing. Especially with this show that we do, Sean, because I encourage that. No, let's mesh it together. But there is a line. Eventually, you're gonna get to a line where you can't do it. And I thought about this and I got to ask you, how different is it? You're doing 30-team leagues, and we go on this podcast every damn week talking about these players like we're in that room with Billy Bean in that scene from Moneyball, and it's like, well, this guy's girlfriend's ugly, yeah, but he can get on base. Well, he's a little bit too stout, yeah, but he keeps his strikeout percentage below 20%.
Yeah.
What's the problem? His head's too big. Yeah, but he's stolen 20 bases in the minors for the last 3 years. And the sprint speed data, we got the stat. We got all this information that it's supposedly meant for only Major League Baseball, but we and everybody that we listen to, all the people that we believe in, even the Scott Whites of the world, the Al Melchiors, all those guys I grew up watching, listening throughout the years in the last 20 years. So it is serendipitous that you mentioned that, Sean. What have you thought about the 20 years? I think this would have been part of my answer is how big of a mesh.
The nerds won.
Well, not just that, but just how big of a mesh this has become. Like there is no differentiation between anymore. We can use some major league numbers and some major league stats and data and tendencies and evaluation formats to analyze fantasy baseball stuff. With that being said, how far are we, do you think, from seeing some of these fantasy baseball experts getting jobs in a Major League Baseball front office? I know it's crazy.
I'm sure. I mean, like, there's definitely some.
The pattern's there.
Yeah, there's definitely some.
Eno Ceres would be my guy. It would be my predictor. Like Eno Ceres should be one.
I think the thing with him is I think there are a lot of them just want to be writers, just want to be reporters.
Yeah.
I think especially when you've been a reporter and then you kind of, because not really just online writers, because the guy Jason Parks you just told me about, he was more of just an online writer. But when you're a reporter like Saris has been, that's in the dugout, in the clubhouse, throwing the microphone in front of a player, and I think that's a very interesting dynamic that's hard to put behind you if a team were to hire you, because say you're a coach or some sort of integration specialist for this technology or that technology or some performance coach or whatever, and you try and go to a player and maybe they don't trust you. I don't want to say like maybe they don't trust you as much because they know your reporter background that, oh, if I suck doing this, will he go tell one of his reporter buddies and a story's out about it next week?
Counterpoint to all that, make them sign a non-disclosure agreement. You can only
Yeah.
discuss these matters with.
Well, then you're an unnamed source in an article.
Oh well, I mean, you make that that's this thing. That's why I don't respect a lot of these guys who are trying to get into writing, and you could tell that how big of a homers they are for their own team and how
Yeah.
constantly apologetic they are. I don't respect those guys. You don't have any critical eye. You're just a fanboy with a blog. You don't do anything. And I think if you were to put Eno Sarris in that situation where he gets hired by the San Francisco Giants and he understands that he's not supposed to disclose certain things anymore, and you once you get in there, you got to give up everything. Dave Cameron doesn't write anymore.
Yeah.
Kevin Goldstein's only writing because he's out of a job, or the whole scandal with Houston.
Yeah, he actually I want to say they mentioned in the book he got fired like the August of 2019, like before everything broke.
Right. So, but he went back to writing for Fangraphs, and I guess he's doing okay. But yeah, but that's the thing with these writers, though, Sean. And here's my counterpoint: a lot of these guys, all they care about is the process. Does it produce results? Is there a way to improve? What technology they're using? That's all of these things that has evolved from the first time I was reading on fantasy baseball to it is now. It is so much involved. It is much more accurate, not accurate, but yeah, you know what I mean. It's like it's so much more insider information, and it's not even necessarily things that are happening inside the dugout, inside front office. It's more like, well, the numbers show this, so that means that XYZ is happening. We were learning that they're using this technology for pitchers so they can do a better job of throwing their changeups, and that's why this is the pitching factory in Houston, Cleveland, Miami now, and for a while the Brewers, whatever. It is so much more involved than it has ever been. When I first got into this game back then, we were still doing, hey guys, watch out. Paul Konerko had a hell of a year last year. That's great, but we're coming into an even year now, so you might want to avoid him. We were still doing that in 2005, 2006, even odd years, stupidity. Hey guys, he's gonna turn 27, so you got to put him up there. You got to raise up Michael Morse's stock or something.
Michael Morse,
just a random name. He's turning 27, guys. Watch out. He's gonna enter his prime. I never was a believer in that. I thought it was bullshit. Hey guys, don't draft this guy. He had a hell of a rookie season, but he's in for a sophomore slump, and we all know sophomore slumps are real. I'm like, no, they're not. Stop it. Just stop. This is. That's what we were working on. Just like, hey, that guy's girlfriend's too ugly, so he can't be that good of a baseball player, but he can get on.
It was the fantasy version of that.
It was a fantasy. We were, even though we dealt in numbers games, we were still doing those stupid narrative. Yeah, that's what it was. Narrative based analysis. Evaluations. Yeah. Thank you. That was just so asininely stupid. And to what it is in 2023, where Eno Sarris is like, that's the thing is he has the pitch. My indicator shows that he has 100 plus stuff, but 100 below control and command. So he needs to improve that command. But stuff is king. Stuff is king. And what he does is he goes on the drive line. Is that what they call it, the drive line technology? Yeah. He goes on the drive line and he's able to practice on his curveballs, and the cameras pinpoint exactly where the release point is and where the tunnel is, and blah, blah. It is so, like I said, 20 years into this, Sean, it is so involved. It's just, well, it's almost to the point that you do have too much information. But I'm a big proponent that it's better to have more information than less information, I think. Yeah. And I'm sorry, this is your question. I interrupted you, but it's just, there's something about this that makes me it just gives me a jolt, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And you've been involved in this. You actually got to work with them. You tell me, how it was working for the Montgomery Biscuits all those years, and I mean, did you see a difference in?
I definitely, there was a couple of different types of scouts. Granted, this was 2019, before a lot of the kind of let goes and firings of scouting staffs during COVID, before COVID, after COVID, that we saw around several teams. But even there were some, like I remember this older gentleman who was a scout for the Rays. And you could tell he was kind of one of the, I don't say the old boy types, but like the the old style.
Yeah.
But he was one of the few that understood, if I don't keep up with this stuff, and he even said, like, pointing to like my little computer station that I had for the field effects tracking and whatnot, and the trackman operators that had their cameras set up in the press box. He was like, I understand that if I don't keep up with this stuff, he said, I don't have a job. And he said, and I love my job. He said, so I'm willing to learn.
Yeah.
And like he would come over and he'd ask me questions about what exactly like my system was doing and stuff like that. And it is one of those just kind of the evolving nature of the game, which is why I always get very upset when people are like, oh, they're making this a rule, they're making this a rule, they're changing this. The game has been evolving since they ever started playing it. This is just a continuation of that. Don't say, oh, the game was so much better in 1970s. Well, the people in the 1970s were probably complaining that they lowered the mound. Like, oh, how dare they? It's been this way for forever. Like every generation, every time period, you had people complaining about the changes that were being made. Like, don't give me that. Like, don't say it. They're changing the game and it's never been changed. The game has been changed. It's been changing.
Like, how did it start? How did this game start? I think it was the hitters used to tell the pitchers where they wanted the pitch to be thrown at them.
Yeah.
Let's go back to that. Let's make Major League Baseball softball again.
Hey, pitchers are going to be calling their own games now with PitchCom. Apparently, they're going to allow some pitchers, if they want, to use the PitchCom to call their own pitches.
That should be something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope the catchers are ready for
I can't wait for the catchers to start doing this.
No.
My entire life, I've seen pitchers be the ones to shake their heads, and now it's going to be catchers like, no.
No, you don't want to throw a fastball to this. Just throw the curveball. Trust me. Like, no, I have 99 miles per hour arm and ready to go. God damn it, let's go. Well, interesting conversation, Sean. I mean, this is a very interesting. This is exactly what I was hoping for it to be. Yeah. It ended up being a lot more linear on my end than I anticipated. I almost was gonna do an audible and say, hey, let's just talk about this stuff instead and just forget. But this has been a lot better than I anticipated. So with that being said, I believe you, unless you want to keep talking about.
I have one very short question and then we can close up.
Sure.
Hopefully it's a short question and a somewhat short answer.
But you're done with this whole meshing of the. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So who in the 20 years has been the best player? And I don't want to hear Barry Bonds. Who has been the best fantasy, like best MLB fantasy player? Like Trout, Turner, the crazy steals guys, Jimmy Rollins. Like, what was, like, maybe not, or maybe just I should have phrased it as like, what was the best fantasy season that you could maybe remember that isn't Bonds? Because even like in the early 2000s, Bonds wasn't really stealing bases. Granted, you played in points leagues, so
yeah, I mean, he was so dominant. Oh, Sean, you're killing me here. All right, you know what?
Because at first, it was almost like this question spawned off of the biggest surprise one, and it was going to be like, who is the biggest letdown for you? And the guy that came to my mind was Jonathan VR, when he had the 20 home run and like 60 stolen base season, and he was going in the top 10 in drafts. But it was just kind of like one of those, what was one of the best fantasy seasons that you kind of remember off the top of your head? All
right, let's see if I have this. All right. Okay, so it's not doing it the way I wanted to do it here. Oh man, stupid CBS. We pay all this money and yeah, we pay all this money here. No free agents. No, I want all players. Okay, so this is not doing what I wanted to do. But yeah, Albert Pujols, according to this stupid thing, got 720 points, fantasy points in one season, which is a lot. 43 home runs. So, but again, that's Albert Pujols.
How many did Judge have this year?
Let me go back to that. So, and this was back in 2003, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, Judge in our league had 713 points.
Yeah.
The strikeouts.
I'm feeling it somewhere in like 2022 Aaron Judge, 2018 Mookie Betts, early Pujols, maybe like the Jacoby Ellsbury peak where he had like a 30-40 season, couple of the A-Rod seasons. Like I'm just out of those guys, like which one do you kind of sticks out the most to you? Or even
Not
when he had the 30 home runs and like 50 stolen bases.
Yeah, Mike Trout has been dominating our league for a while just because of that versatility. And unfortunately, this thing isn't doing what I wanted to do. But Miguel Cabrera was also pretty damn good back in the day.
Yeah.
That was a name that shows up, and I think that's what's happening is that it doesn't recognize what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to see go back all the way back to 2003, and 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. And it's not doing it because a lot of these guys are no longer playing. They don't recognize these guys.
They're not alive anymore in their eyes.
I'm gonna try one more thing and see if that'll work, because I thought that's why we're spending all this money every year on these stupid things, is to make sure we have those records.
Yeah, didn't realize how good Christian Yelich was in 2019.
Oh yeah, that was my guy. That was my guy.
He had 30 stolen, because I knew he had like the 40 home run seasons, like back to back or high 30s and then a 40. I did not realize when he hit 44 home runs, he stole 30 bases.
Here's a name for you. This is an easy one, but Richard Hidalgo. Yeah, that translated to fantasy as well. Richard Hidalgo, when he hit the 46 home runs that one year in 2000, I forget.
So 2006 Albert Pujols was nearly identical to 2019 Yelich, except in like RBIs, Pujols had 40 more, but also Yelich had 23 more stolen bases than Pujols.
Roy Oswalt ended up being a very good starting pitcher in our league as well. Yeah. He was really damn good. I can't remember the years off the top of my head.
I'm not even thinking on the pitching side, but yeah, definitely. Like, what are some of the pitchers? I know you just mentioned Roy Oswalt. Obviously, kind of the late Pedro Randy years. I'm not sure how good Johan Santana was because it wasn't much of a strikeout guy.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the guy who owned them was winning, but I'm pretty sure he had like all these other pitchers as well. But let's stay with the 2003 teams, and I'm gonna stop doing my looking it up through CBS because they're not doing what I want them to do. So I'm gonna go into Fangraph, see if I can rekindle my memory. But Roy Oswalt, Cliff Lee for a couple of years. Basically, Roy Halladay was also damn good. You know what the advantage of Roy Halladay was?
Yeah.
Complete games are worth bonus points in our league. So
yeah,
you had him and you had that.
And for those like early 2000s, like his 8 to 9 strikeouts per 9 like was good for that era, really.
I'm seeing Mark Pryor. I don't remember Mark Pryor
I just saw his name. I'm looking at the 03 Pryor year, 04 Ben Sheets.
Oh yeah, Ben Sheets was my guy, dude. That was one of the guys.
Hammer curve.
Oh my, I love Ben Sheets. That was one of the guys I was like so happy to draft. He's gonna be my starting pitcher. And that's the thing, is that building around your like a starting pitcher like that, very rare to do, even during this time of era in baseball. If you don't have Pedro Martinez, Roy Halladay, or Randy Johnson, you're out of luck. You're screwed.
Okay, so don't listen to me, because apparently from 2003 to 2005, which I think is when Santana had 2 of those Cy Youngs in 04 and 05, I believe. And then I think he had 3 in a row. It was 04, 05, 06, something like that. But, okay, let's just do those 4 years. He had a 9 point, it's giving me a blank, but his 2004 year, he had a 10.5 K per 9 in 2004. Like that's, I thought he struck out less, but yeah, over a 4-year period, 9.7 K per 9. I'm sure that K percentage was really damn good too, because he didn't really walk many guys. So yeah, don't listen to me about saying Johan didn't strike people out.
Here's one for you. Closers are a big deal. This is back in the day where the 9th inning guy was a 9th inning guy, and my guy in 2003 was BJ Ryan. I love me some BJ Ryan.
That's a name I've forgotten.
Although I see that in 2003 he wasn't saving, but he was on my radar. Like, oh man, if this guy ever gets a closing job in Baltimore, I want him on my team as my main closer. And that lasted for about 2 years when arm injury started ensuing. But this is back when you can depend on these guys to get you all the saves. And one guy, well, not just him, but watch it in 2003. Remember this guy named Eric Gagne?
Gagne, yep. 55 saves.
John Smoltz with a paltry 45. And non-Hall of Fame pitcher Billy Wagner with 44 in 2003.
I find it insane that his K-Rod's best year in terms of WAR seems to have been when he only had 12 saves, but he had a 3.7 WAR.
Here's another name for you for the Dodgers, Jonathan Broxton.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he led everybody, all relief pitchers in WAR with 2.6 in 2009. But let me see, who was a saves leader? So saves are worth 10 points each. Brian Fuentes had 48 saves with the Angels. I remember, I think I might have had him. Brian Fuentes, Houston Street. I have very good memories of those guys because I used to depend on those guys for
JJ
saves. JJ, is it Putz or Poots? I used to call him Putz, but I think it's
Putz.
Poots.
Poots.
Yeah,
He poots. Shows how mature we are.
Clicking over to the starting pitchers. I never was a big fan of Zach Greinke, I think, but he pitched a lot of innings, got a lot of wins in 2009, so he was valuable. I was a big Felix Hernandez guy, even though, and I had him on my team, but again, I read some of these articles that say beware of Felix Hernandez. He's not always. If you got him, you might want to trade him or get rid of him. So I got rid of him because of this stupid article. Looking back, I should have just stuck to my guns because I really, really, really liked him when he was coming up the minors.
You should send that author a very strongly worded email.
Probably Scott White, and that's somebody I respect. But other guys listed: Roy Halladay, which we already told you how good he was. Cliff Lee, once he got situated with Cleveland, it just became like automatic with him. And we see that pitching. I mean, Adam Wainwright. Remember, he started his career as a closer in 2009. He's already like among the top 15 best starting pitchers, along with Chris Carpenter, Joel Pinheiro, of course, because the Cardinals, they take these rejects and turn them into serviceable starting pitchers. Josh Beckett was also damn good as well.
CC Sabathia just being an innings monster.
Yeah. Back when that was the expectation, you pitch your 6 or 7 innings, and then as you know, Sean, as years will go on, those expectations got lower. I mean, again, we're complaining about guys who can't even go past 5 innings. I had Chase Utley on my team for a long time. So that's why I have a soft spot for him and Scott Rowland for a long time. I had him. 2009, he was the number 4 best player in WAR. But was that, I guess the stat I should be looking at is WOBA, right? Because all we care is about production. By the way, Pujols with a 447 WOBA. Joe Mauer, 438.
Wow.
Prince Fielder hit 46 home runs in 2009, so that was pretty valuable because he wasn't striking out a lot either.
Yeah.
Kevin Euclid is a guy I used to have all the time because of the walks. I'm a big walk guy. I'm a big
the Greek god of walks.
That's right. Hanley Ramirez was always automatic. 25 home runs, 25 stolen bases at the very least. Adrian Gonzalez, big run producer that he was. But my guy, Sean, Ryan Braun, that was my guy.
You would root for the Astros, and Ryan Braun was your guy. I'm gonna keep an eye on you next year, Felipe, in the league, because I think there might be some funny business going on based on your likes.
Listen, man, the only crime is getting caught. All right, and technically, Ryan Braun never got caught. That urine sample was tainted.
Oh, tainted, yeah.
And you know what? Happy ending. He ended up meeting up the guy
whose career he ruined.
No, he still works there. What are you talking about?
Oh, okay. Didn't ruin his career. Ruined his reputation.
No, he's still director of that. I checked it up. He's still the director of that hospital up in Milwaukee. A big hospital.
You can still have the position.
No, a director of a major hospital system, bro. Come on, like he's a head honcho, man.
We might be thinking of different people, because I know there was like the low level guy that handled the actual urine. Where the hell is this conversation going? I literally just used the phrase "handle the urine."
No,
I think that means we've hit the limit.
No, hold on, brother. I looked up the story. I looked up the name. I work in healthcare industry. It doesn't mean that I know everybody that has ever worked in the healthcare industry, but I know how these things. I have an idea how these stupid things work, right? So, this guy, not only did Ryan Braun have dinner with him after the fact, he had dinner. He apologized that things went that way, and Ryan Braun says, he didn't say anything about it, but it was a good conversation. It was a nice meal. It was a great dinner. And it's water under the bridge. And I looked up the guy on LinkedIn. He's still working in that same hospital system. He for like 20 years now.
So where is I'm trying to find the guy because I'm trying to remember who it was.
He's still around, man. He's still the director of medical operations at the major Milwaukee hospital system. He's fine. Fine. Nothing was ruined. Also, while you're looking up, Rockies were still a thing back then. Brad Hawk, Matt Holliday,
Troy Tulowitzki.
Well, 2006, 2007, 2008, around that time, I ended up having both Ryan Braun and Troy Tulowitzki on the same team. And I think I even had Ryan Zimmerman, and amounted to jack shit for my team. So that's how frustrating. But Ryan Braun was awesome. He basically carried me to a playoff berth on his back. So I'll always have a soft spot for Ryan Braun. I don't care what he did. Listen, he apologized.
On my back.
He apologized. Okay. Michael Young was also always a pretty damn good second baseman as well. I trusted him for a long time. And once Michael Young left, Ian Kinsler.
I was just about to say him too when you brought up second base. That was underrated.
At 3 years, Joey Votto also was pretty freaking good, man. Again, him also, I think I had him on the same team with Ryan Braun. Helped me get into a playoff berth as well. On offense, I had shit pitching that year, and I ended up going to the playoffs. Only 4 teams make the playoffs in this league, so Joey Votto was instrumental. And let's go to 2013, 10 years ago, and we'll call it a night. Yeah, Mike Trout's the truth that he just established himself. But that was the year Miguel Cabrera got the Triple Crown and stole an MVP from Mike Trout. But just depends how you look at it, right? Yeah. Andrew McCutchen was always I was at a point in my life where I thought McCutchen was better than Mike Trout before this happened. He started
before Trout became Trout.
Before he busted out the 10. And I'm on the record writing it down saying, listen, Mike Trout's awesome, but I'd rather have the plate discipline of Andrew McCutchen on my team. He gets the stolen bases, he gets the home runs, and he doesn't strike out as much. Well, little did I know, Mike Trout would eventually figure out this Major League Baseball game and become one of the greatest players of all time. McCutchen, pretty damn good player for his era too, but nowhere near what Mike Trout ended up being. Josh Donaldson was also coming into the fore as well as what do you call those guys? As a third baseman for the Oakland Athletics. Out of nowhere, so there's a surprise there, Sean. Out of nowhere, Josh Donaldson became a known commodity in fantasy circles. So Chris Davis, 53 home runs that year in 2013.
Yes, when the A's were good.
So they were testing for PEDs, not PhDs, for PEDs.
Not going to find many PhDs in a baseball clubhouse.
We're looking for doctors. No, not that kind of doctor.
Are you a doctor?
Okay, who am I? Is it really I am, therefore I think, therefore I am? What is the point of life? Why am I here? What is the purpose of our living?
This man is choking.
Is baseball a metaphor for life? Am I the bat or am I the ball? You tell me. But at that time, they weren't really testing too hard for ADHD medications, I believe, and a lot of connections are being made that Chris Davis was able to hit those home runs. Number one, he was desperate for a contract. Remember, that was Buck Showalter butting in. Like, anybody who wants to pay this guy that type of money should not consider that.
I don't remember that.
No, he Buck Showalter.
I need to go find that.
Buck Showalter got involved in those publicly got involved himself in those contract negotiations, which got him a lot of flack. Like, hey, mind your own business, old man. Get the fudge out of here. But turns out he was right. He knew something that we didn't know with the Orioles as a manager. The Davis, then they started I think you remember this, right, Sean? Major League Baseball started bringing down the hammer on ADHD medications.
Yeah.
And Chris Davis kept taking them. He got suspended, right? If memory serves me right. So there you go. Buster Posey's always been a really good hitting catcher as well.
Wrong Chris Davis. That's why I was so confused.
Oh my God. You're thinking about Mexican Chris Davis?
I was thinking about Oakland A's Chris Davis. I mean, didn't he have like almost a 50 home run season? Like 47 or something?
Close enough. I mean,
I don't know.
I
know why I was so confused. I was like, why is Buck Showalter talking about Crush Davis? Like,
yeah, and both Chris Davises, one with the K, one with the C, they ended up having pretty similar batting averages, right?
Yep. And then, of course, Crush Davis had the 241, 247 batting average 4 years in a row.
I'll leave you with this last name right here. Paul Goldschmidt.
Ah, jeez.
And it's not just because he's such a great hitter, but it's just the fact that this is around in 2013. This is around the time where he was establishing himself as a pretty damn good base stealer as well.
Yeah, he was a first baseman that was giving you all of the offensive production. If anything, maybe just a little light on the home runs because it was like maybe in the high 20s, but he more than made up for it in stolen bases for fantasy.
Well, every once in a while, Sean, in 2013, he had 36 home runs along with 15 stolen bases.
Okay. Because I know there was one year where it was like the home runs were down, but he hit like almost like 50, 60 doubles. That was insane.
Well, 2015, 33 home runs, 21 stolen bases. 2016, 24 home runs, but 32 stolen bases. And then 2017, 36 home runs.
He had a 32 stolen base year.
2016, look it up.
Oh my God.
36 home runs in 2017, 18 stolen bases. So I guess that is a good way to stop. If you're looking for guys that shocked the fantasy world out of nowhere, that would be a great name to look up. Paul Goldschmidt in the early 2010s.
Yep. God, I didn't realize he debuted in 2011.
Time flies, brother.
I thought he
Time
was like
flies.
closer to 2014, but wow, he was, yeah.
And now he's 35 years old.
Jeez.
And it's still hitting.
Still hitting.
I don't know if the stolen bases are there. I forgot how many stolen bases he got last year.
He stole 12 in 2021 and 7 last year. But he's actually currently, over the last 3 years, he has 20 stolen bases and has not been caught once. He's become the savvy base runner.
Very savvy. The AJ Przinsky's of base running, right?
So he has I know this is so random. He has a 31.8 BSR for his career right now. I would go out on a limb and say that has to be the best of any first baseman in modern baseball.
How far back you want to go?
69, 50, like World War, because I feel like if you go too far back, there's some of those like tiny little dudes that played first base and stole like 50, but
well, 1947 is known as the integration era because of Jackie Robinson. So let's do that and you only want to look at first baseman. So Fangraphs, they what I found out is that people do not like the way Fangraphs classifies some of these hitters.
Yes.
But we're going to use them anyway, because screw those guys, right? Screw these people who don't like Fangraphs. Fangraphs is truth. So we're looking up first baseman, right?
BSR.
And then we're looking up for BSR. Sorry, my computer's slow. So if you got it pulled up, just shout it out.
I'm working on it.
Wow. Maybe it knows that you and I are trying to get in on this. There we go. So first baseman, Albert Pujols at negative 50.
Oh yeah, like he's not even like he's heads and shoulders above everybody else.
All right, you got it. You want me to do it?
Goldschmidt, Erstad, Myers, Bellinger, and Earl Torgerson.
I have no idea who that is, but
neither do I.
Hey, some of these guys don't know who you're talking about. Darren Erstad, Will Myers, Cody Bellinger, Earl Torgerson, Greg Jeffries, who was an all-star at one point of his life.
Yeah.
12.1 BSR, which is the base running metric they use for calculating Fangraphs wins above replacement. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and Goldschmidt, we said, is at 31.8. The number 2 guy is Erstad at 22.4. So likely going to be 10 BSR ahead, which would put, the same distance. Like, oh my God, he's just so far ahead. And
Erstad plays center field too.
Yeah, I was like, Erstad played, some outfield. And same thing with Will Myers, same thing with Cody Bellinger.
Bingo. And even Greg Jeffries, I believe.
Yeah, Jeffries was kind of util, but a lot of these guys played around.
But here's a name, Sean, at number 10, the guy with the gimpy legs.
Bill Buckner.
Bill Buckner, number 10. The
had 183 career stolen bases.
And I think he also was an outfielder too for a while.
Yeah. Those knees were definitely shot by 86 though.
So when was it he had his peak? Bill Buckner had a 2.1 BSR in 1976 with the Dodgers, stole 28 stolen bases in 1976. Wait 10 years to see what happens to you, my friend.
Yeah.
Wait 10 years.
31 stolen bases in 1974.
Well, check this out.
Look at the walk and strikeout rate for Bill Buckner.
Oh, he was
that's absurd. That's absurd.
Talent per talent, pound for pound, one of the better hitters of his era.
Didn't walk, didn't strike out. He just hit the ball.
He just made contact. He made contact and was productive for his time. One of those guys, 1982, got 15 home runs, but drove in 105 RBI. With the Red Sox, in 1985, he stole 18 stolen bases, by the way.
At 35 years old. Oh, you see, that was the last. That's what caused it. His knees were done. Yeah, he ran too much the year before. And
it's all downhill after 1986, brother. All downhill. And then he escapes and goes into hiding in Idaho.
In Idaho.
I think that's where he's from, Montana or Idaho, one of those secluded countries.
Countries? They might as well be countries.
Might as well. All right. Well, Sean, very spirited conversation today. Any last words from you before I let you go?
No. Ready for the World Baseball Classic starting up. Spring training starts in a week. So,
oh my God.
And then the World Baseball Classic starts a week after that. And,
oh my God. I'm not ready.
Then by the time the World Baseball Classic ends, it's time.
Hey, if you want to meet us in Arizona, I believe someone is selling their tickets right now because they were able to upgrade seats. Are you able to join? I can hook you up.
Probably not.
Damn it, Sean. All right. Well, maybe next time.
Yep.
All right. Well, good conversation, Sean. Thank you so much for everybody who listened in and tuned in. I am Felipe. That is Sean. We'll see you next time.